Sam Talent was great yesterday. I had a good talk with him. The Nick Lydorf episode is out this week, so if you haven't checked that out, check it out. I want to thank whoever is listening every single week from Poland. I get one download from Poland every week, and I know that they are subscribed because they download it as soon as the episode comes out. So whoever you are, come say hi sometime. Give me a shout. Only thing I want to talk about is the Letterman podcast with Mike Chisholm. One of my favorite podcasts that has come out this year. He gets in deep with all the folks who were behind the scenes on the David Letterman show, writers, showrunners, comedians, some of the characters that were on the show. So it's really it's I'm such a big Letterman fan that it is really nostalgic for me. I'm not a nostalgic type of guy, so it's made me want to go back and watch clips and stuff like that. So yeah, check it out. It's very well done. Mike is a great interviewer, and I had him on my show a couple months ago. So check out that interview, and then you will know that it's a great podcast, Letterman podcast. Today, I've got Ginny Hogan. She came back even after I had computer issues and came back same week. So I appreciate that. Ginny is a New York City-based writer and stand-up comedian. She's a contributor for the New Yorker, the Atlantic, the Cut, the New York Times, Cosmopolitan, the Observer, McSweeney's, and Vulture. And I read articles from about half of those, and they're all great. Her latest book called I'm More Dateable Than a Plate of Refried Beans came out earlier this year, I think July of this year. And it's gotten some pretty good reviews. And I found Jenny because I subscribed to her Substack. So I was reading those for like a year. And I finally said, oh, yeah, she's a comedian. I should have her on. So here she is, Jenny Hogan.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be
Hey,
here.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. The first thing I wanted to ask is you just did a tour in the South, Atlanta and all that. How was that your first time to go South?
I actually had done Atlanta before for stand up,
Okay.
but it was my first time in all those other places doing comedy. And then I've been in the South for various reasons for the years. I was in Charleston for a bachelorette a few years ago. It was definitely the longest I've ever spent in the South, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Do you think I'm in the South now, I'm in Huntsville, and I was originally a Midwest guy. And do you think that there's misconceptions about the audiences in the South?
Well, I think I was doing an hour-long set that I kind of had prepared, and there's not really that much I can adjust to based on the
Uh-huh.
audience. So I was ready to just do my set kind of regardless of what the audiences were like, and I was a little bit nervous, but I was largely in very urban areas. My set's not
Yeah.
like extremely political. I make a few I take a few jabs at Trump, which feels very kind of like vanilla. At
Uh-huh.
least in New York City. So that went fine everywhere except when I was in South Carolina. I thought I was doing a show in Charleston. It was actually doing a show in like this like rural town, like an hour and a half from Charleston.
Okay.
So that was a little bit that was a little bit harder. The
Yeah.
guy ahead of me was like making references to like how he had never worn a mask and that kind of thing. So that audience was like a little bit more maybe like what my stereotype of the South was, but then everywhere else the audiences felt similar to what I would get like on the East Coast.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think the metro areas are they're not even necessarily liberal, but they at least listen, and they don't take themselves so seriously. It's when you get into the more
Yeah.
rural areas that you get the folks that are hardcore.
Are you in a city?
Yeah, Huntsville actually is the biggest city in Alabama now. We passed up
Um,
Birmingham last year.
yeah. Do you like living there?
I do. We moved down because my son got a job for NASA about 7 years ago, and we just kept visiting and saying, "Why don't we live here?" And then after COVID was done, we were kind of fed up with Indiana and said, okay, well, let's just do it. So we did it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a big little city. There's no, I wouldn't consider anything in Alabama to be big, but it's blue, so that's cool. Mostly because everybody's transplants, so
Yeah.
that's everybody like they've got an FBI installation here now that's really big. All the defense contractors and stuff like that. Everybody comes in from the coast mostly to take those jobs because of the cost of living so low here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That
I
makes sense.
wanted to ask, did you start writing or did you start stand up first?
I started stand up first.
Okay.
I am more of a writer now, but I started in San Francisco, and in San Francisco, there's like not really any kind of like, I just didn't know anyone who was even really like big on social media. So really like the only thing that I knew was stand up. So I started stand up and I did stand up exclusively for about a year before I started writing for like various websites.
Okay. Now, did the stand up like just open up your creative brain? Because I know you were an engineer before, and did that just like open the door for you to start writing the satire and the great articles that you do?
Yeah, totally. Stand up was like my first time doing anything like creative like that. I guess I did like speech and debate in high school, which was like public speaking, but
Uh-huh.
it definitely kind of got me like thinking about jokes like a million times a day. So I would say in that sense, like stand up really like opened things up. And then writing is like a little bit better suited, I think, for my personality, just because I'm like a little bit introverted and like an early bird and that kind of thing. So like I still do stand up. I love stand up, but I writing like feels like kind of like a more natural fit.
Yeah, and I really like them both, but when I get into your articles, the one you wrote about when you were in debate was great. I don't remember the title of that one. It's about the senator, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about Josh Hawley. That one's
Yeah,
not funny at all. It's like very dark. I'm trying to
yeah,
write like darker things.
right. And contrast that with like non mega Republicans that you did for the New Yorker, which is it's funny and snarky and it's really just kind of a funny silly article, and the one about debate and Josh was a lot more. There was a lot more meat on that one.
Yeah, yeah, it's very dark. Yeah.
Yeah. So first off, I have to say you're brave because I cyber stalk everybody I have on the show. You're very brave to have your first stand-up set still on your YouTube.
Is it still on my YouTube? Oh, I should take
Yeah.
it off. I feel like I hid most of my YouTube like a little while ago.
Yeah.
Um,
that
okay.
that one's still there.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm gonna hide it.
Well, I'll tell you, it's not the worst. It's not the worst first 5 minutes I've seen. So you had a couple good ones in there.
Yeah, I was really excited about like stand up right in the beginning, and I sent my first set to like everyone. Like I put it online and like put it on my Facebook. Like I was not at all ashamed, and now I'm like, this is so embarrassing. I can't believe it's up there.
Yeah. What drew you to stand up?
I had like kind of a lull at work, and I thought that maybe it made sense to just like sorry, is there like a lag with the internet? Okay. I had a
No,
lull.
I'm good.
Okay. I had a lull at work, and I just kind of wanted to do something different. I worked in tech, and I felt like everyone I knew worked in tech, and stand up was my first time like meeting like a kind of a new side of San Francisco. And I took a class, but I didn't really expect to like go further than the class. Like I was sort of like one of those yuppies who just like takes classes in like random things I find interesting. And then I just like fell in love with stand up, and it became like I just had to I had to do it like constantly basically.
Yeah, and San Francisco's got a really good scene.
It really does. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, did you so you start doing the mics in San Francisco. Did you meet anybody that gave you some really great advice out of the at the onset?
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of people gave me like I think that I can't really point to like one person who's given me like who's been like my mentor, but I think that at every step, like there was like a different person sort of like guiding me to the next step. So like when I started doing comedy, like the first challenge was like going from open mics to like booked shows. So it was like how to get booked on shows, and people like gave me advice on like getting a good tape and sending that tape to producers and that kind of thing. And like, so then like from there, I kind of like moved on to doing book shows. And then once I started writing online, I reached out to other people who were also writing online who like gave me feedback on how to turn that into like getting a manager and running a book and that kind of thing. So from that perspective, it's been really good. Like I feel like I've always had people to kind of like ask for help as I went, which was really good.
I've heard that scene is really, it's really kind of a close-knit scene, and it's not as hard on you as New York is.
No, yeah, it's much warmer. Yeah. Have you done a lot of stand-up?
I've done it like as a hobby for about 6 years.
Yeah. Is there a good scene in Huntsville?
Actually, there is, and really a couple of guys built it up. Matthew Tate and Scott Eason are both here, and I can do an open mic, I think, 5 nights a week. And they've got a stand-up live, which I think is associated with Zanies.
Oh, cool.
One of the bigger franchises, and then they've got a couple smaller theaters and a lot of showcase shows. And then we're only a couple hours from Birmingham, not even 2 hours from Birmingham, and then Tuscaloosa is pretty close too. So there's pretty good scene. You see people from all 3 cities, no matter where you go.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So thinking about your act, which I really like, it's funny because you're about the same age as my daughter, and it's funny how my generation of people don't understand how your generation of people see the world.
Yeah,
you're a lot more pragmatic about it. You know, you really you kind of know what's going on. And when I think of myself at your age, I didn't know what was going on. And I was just putting my head down and working. And you're a lot more informed. And I know the internet has to do with that, but you take the time to be informed, and you understand the issues a lot more than I did at that age.
Yeah. Do you feel like what do you feel like your generation was like not as well informed about?
Like politics, the world situation, and we also stamped a lot of stuff down.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, you're a woman, and you know how hard it is now. It was even harder then, and it's just I think and really that's what I'm turning my comedy around to be, is kind of a hopefully a soft anti-boomer sentiment from a boomer. So that's what I'm going for, and so it's kind of like everything seemed good, so we just lived our lives and didn't really look into what was going on in the country and in our neighbors' houses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Maybe that'll give you some material.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
So like I said, I really like your stand-up. How did you come to the stand-up persona that you are that you have on stage now? Because I mean, you really got an hour pretty quickly.
Oh, thank you. It doesn't feel that quick. It's been like 6 years. Yeah, I guess like honestly, I worry that every year I'm like writing less stand-up. Like I feel like my first year of stand-up, I wrote like half an hour of jokes, and obviously a lot of them aren't good, and I don't tell them anymore. But yeah, I do feel like I just kind of am always sort of. I used to just like really write like a ton of jokes and kind of like throw everything at the wall, and now it feels like new stuff I write has to like sort of fit in with like my existing stand-up persona. That said, I try not to like be too attached to having one specific character on stage. So like I'm telling my hour is like a chronological story of my 20s, and the nice thing is that like I go through like many different iterations of like people in my 20s. So like there are times when I'm very loose and dating a ton of men, and then there are times when I'm like practically celibate and like I get sober and I get like a lot more serious. And so like all these like different jokes can kind of work in the same hour because it's like describing like how I'm changing as a person. And so that's like pretty helpful, I would say. Yeah, so in that sense I don't feel like super attached to having like one persona on stage. I think in the beginning I really just like wanted any joke I thought was funny, I would just like put it in my set. Like it didn't really have to like match any kind of personality.
Right. Yeah, you've definitely got a theme that flows through, and I just really enjoy the honesty of it and the fact that you're really talking about, you know, your life and how things have affected you, and just how people people your age think now. And
Yeah.
it really, it's helpful for somebody like me to watch that and then have a conversation with my kids who are
Mhm.
about your age, and kind of understand where they're coming from.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah,
And it's
that is.
funny too,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
your kids don't talk about, explicit sexual stuff, but
Mhm.
they talk about the other stuff, the depression and all that kind of stuff that is just an epidemic these days. So
Yeah.
I really I think that watching you made me understand my kids more.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. I
Yeah,
appreciate you
yeah.
saying that. How many kids do you have?
Two. Yeah,
Two.
just
Okay,
two.
son and a daughter.
Yeah, yeah. We're the nuclear family,
Mhm. Yeah.
Just don't have a dog anymore.
Yeah.
So you're doing the comedy and you start doing the writing. How did you sell yourself to these publications so that you could start getting published?
Yeah, I mean the pieces like are at least at the New Yorker and McSweeney's, they're fully written by the time that I pitch them. So
Mhm.
so it's just a matter of I didn't feel like I had to like give them any personal details about myself. They were just evaluating the piece.
Mhm.
For other publications that I'm like trying to or that I had to that kind of was like a little bit slower to break into, I had to like write out a pitch and then pass along other writing samples. It is like one of those like chicken and the egg problems where like you need some publications to get some publications, and I think a lot of the times you have to like just kind of put stuff up on a Medium blog, or else no one will ever want to publish it on their website. But yeah, honestly, like I I didn't really have a plan when I started doing that, and I think that that's like for the best because if I had known how hard it would be to like break into all these different publications, I like maybe never would have tried. But like fortunately, I did things just like generally like pretty slowly and like one at a time, and along the way, I never was like, oh, this year I need to like you know get this year I need to get published by like this publication and this publication and
Uh-huh.
this publication. It was always just like I, as I had a new idea, I would like look through my Twitter contacts to figure out who I could send it to, and kind of like slowly like chipped away at it.
Cool. And what magazine or website were you first published in?
The New Yorker.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. So that was but the New Yorker actually weirdly had open submissions, which I feel like no one would expect, but they really did, which is crazy. Like anyone could submit to it.
Man, who was reading all those?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It took them like 10 months to get back to me, but now they get back like a little bit more in like a more timely way, which is good.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's great. Now, I'm a guy who suffers from depression, and I listened to your episode on depression mode,
Oh,
and it's first off, that guy, I think his name's Joe, great interviewer, and he does a really good job, and he's very prepared. I'll never be like that.
you're very prepared. You're doing
Yeah,
great.
I like to, I like the talk to be more spontaneous, but I just thought it was really good that I like that podcast. I'm going to listen to more because he he comes at it at more of a matter of fact type way, because people who suffer from depression, they don't need to know about all the sadness and stuff like that because they already have it. So
Hmm.
the it's just how you get around it and the different stages and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really good hour of talk there, and I related to some of it. So I thought
Yeah.
it was really good.
Yeah.
Now you talk about the fact that the stand up really kind of fed into the fact that you were getting into alcohol too much, the drink tickets and stuff like that. Do you feel like that you could have had that same alcohol problem if you didn't do stand up?
Um, yeah, totally. I think it really like got exacerbated by stand up, but I feel like I was kind of like already getting there. Because I think it was like I just like didn't want to be in my brain, and I feel like
Uh-huh.
that could have really like turned into like an alcohol problem, like kind of regardless.
Mhm.
I think that like the fact that I was like in bars every night, a big thing about stand up is that it like made drinking feel productive, which I think is like when things kind of really started to like spin out of control. So I do feel like maybe it would not have gotten as bad if I didn't do stand up, but I definitely think like the groundwork was kind of laid like before I started doing stand up.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that, for me, I still drink, and when I perform or I go to a show, I always drink. And it maybe light beer or something like that. It's not, I don't drink heavily, but I always have a beer in my hand or
Mhm.
an old fashioned or something like that. And
Yeah.
if I hadn't gone to the show, I definitely wouldn't be drinking because I don't just sit at home and drink. So,
Yeah.
being a social drinker, that's what it is. Um, so I kind of want to talk about Twitter because I mean that's really was kind of your launching pad. How has Twitter changed since our buddy Elon took over for you? Not just Twitter in general, but are you getting as many likes and retweets and stuff like that you did before?
I don't think I'm getting quite as many likes as before, which is like could totally be me. My quality varies. I I lost a lot of followers, but now I think the following loss has like stabilized, and now I'm like gaining followers again, which is good. Because I need to always be getting new followers if I want more people to come to my stand-up shows. Um, so from that perspective, yeah, it's been hard, but I think it's okay. I mean, like he let Trump back on and Trump didn't start tweeting, which I guess is like something to do with his contract with Truth Social, but I think it's great. Like, I don't know. I think it's like also kind of embarrassing for Elon that Trump doesn't even want to use his site, but like
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of kept people on it. I think a lot of people would leave if Trump like started like making it the new Truth Social.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it's actually honestly been kind of nice to like get on these new platforms. Like I got on Post and I got on Mastodon, and
Uh-huh.
it's good, I think, to like just kind of like diversify a little bit. I think that on Mastodon I've encountered some people who weren't weren't following me on Twitter, so it is kind of like opening up a new potential fan base. Yeah, so from that perspective, I'm okay with it.
Mhm. And I just wonder how many people are just starting Twitter accounts just to see what's up
Yeah,
or
I think that
going
could
dormant.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
blocked Elon Musk on Twitter because I just find him annoying, and I like couldn't resist the urge to comment when I
Yeah.
was pissed off. Yeah, I don't even really know what he's saying. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nobody wants to know. Well, some people do. Some people still
Yeah.
think he's the second coming, but whatever. Um, so with Twitter being kind of your main social media app, the blew up for you more than any other. Did that before Elon and all that? Did that translate into audience members for you?
Yeah, I mean, I do my stand-up show hourly or monthly, and I think most of the people come from Twitter. I
Right.
sell like 60 tickets a month, and so I don't know how many are from Twitter, but I do have like a promo code that I put on all my social media platforms, and I think like over half the people who buy tickets buy it from my promo code. So yeah, it definitely does translate into ticket sales.
Great, great.
Yeah.
I've talked to so many people that create content, and it's really kind of a mixed bag on if the content actually converts to somebody in a chair,
Yeah.
and I think that people get more involved with prose, with your posting actual words than like watching a heckler reel or something like that, or a TikTok or something like that. I mean, they see it, they think it's funny, but do they actually equate that to a person?
Yeah, that's interesting because I would think a video would get like more, but I think
Hmm.
that it could be true that people feel like they're yeah, like they're seeing like kind of getting to know me more because it's words.
Yeah, they're more
Yeah.
invested.
Yeah, yeah, I think that could definitely be true.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just, I'm going off the rails here, but I'm thinking about all this stuff, and I thought about it a lot today, and I'm just wondering, I don't do a lot of social media myself. I just do it for the podcast, and really Instagram's my platform there, and I'm on Twitter. I post maybe once a month, but I found all these substacks through Twitter.
Mhm.
Yours, I probably subscribe to like 20 of them, and
Yeah.
it's comedians and uh, writers and people like that, and I get so much from that sometimes I think that just because of that, Twitter was worth it for me.
Yeah, yeah, no, it definitely like kind of leads you to find people who you can then find on other platforms. So you're a big fan of like the newsletters?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how I found you. And the funny thing is I was reading the newsletters, and I didn't equate you to being a stand-up until you started posting shows. And
Yeah.
I, I thought of you as more of a writer, just more of an essayist. And then I'm like, oh yeah, she's a comedian. So that's when I reached out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting what like people from different platforms think that I do because like people on Twitter think of me as like a comic, but I guess like people who read me in the New Yorker think of me as like a satire writer, and like I don't really think of myself as like one thing or the other, but it's like, or I guess I think of everything as kind of all the same in that I'm like a writer, I guess.
Hmm.
But people will be like, "Oh wow, that's so interesting that you like also do stand up," whereas stand up like feels very relevant to what I'm doing as like a comedian. So it's kind of, or like what I'm doing as a writer. So it kind of does feel like it's a little bit, it's interesting to me when people are like very surprised to learn to like find that I'm like involved in one thing over another.
Yeah, yeah. It's two totally different things, although they overlap sometimes too. And
Oh yeah.
I like that. Um, you get around the country pretty well. Who are you seeing as comedians that are really good out there now that are kind of unsung? Have you run into any of them that just really you really liked, but they're not quite getting the heat that they should have?
Well, I think I don't really know a lot of comedians outside of New York and LA, except San Francisco, where I used to live. My
Hmm.
friend Jeff Dean in San Francisco. So I think that you're kind of referring to comedians who aren't in like one of the big cities yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend Jeff Dean in San Francisco is really great. My friend James Mora in San Francisco is really funny. I love this woman Holly Ballantine who lives in Atlanta.
Yeah, I know
And
Holly. Yeah.
yeah, she's great. And then I did meet comedians on the road, but it wasn't people I've like seen multiple times. Definitely people I thought were really good, but
Hmm.
yeah, I think that most of the people I know though are in like New York and Los Angeles because those are the places that I've like done the most stand up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there is a more even playing field for women in comedy than when you started? Do you think it's getting any better, or do you think just kind of in a holding pattern?
I think maybe it's getting like a little bit better after Me Too, and that like women can kind of like complain, I guess, when things are messed up. Or I shouldn't say complain, but like women have kind of like recourse when people like treat them badly. But that being said, like I feel like you can still look at like lineups of any club, and it's like mostly men. So I wouldn't say that things have gotten like dramatically better for women. But I think that actually the other thing that's helped women is like social media, because people can kind of find their own audiences. So like you don't need like a club to like approve you. Like you can just go and seek out an audience on your own.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's funny. I see all the posters, and it's still a lot of clubs and a lot of promoters are, you got the token woman, you got the token LGBTQ, and you got the token somebody from a different race, and it just seems to be kind of a circular motion of that, and it's but other times, the one thing I don't like, and I don't know how you feel about this, is putting together a show and just saying, okay, it's ladies' night, it's all ladies, and just putting a whole bunch of women on the bill, whether they're funny or not, and just filling it up like that and making theme shows. I'm not a theme show type of person. How do you feel about that?
I am not opposed to them, because I think that like I think for an audience member, like there are audience members who don't like to go to stand up because they think of it as like not going to represent them, and people who aren't going to be like talking about their lives. So I think that for like audience members who go to stand up shows and feel like it's all men all the time, they're like happy to see like a ladies night kind of thing. That said, like I do think it's like, yeah, like I don't want to be like a comedian who only does like women shows and that sort of thing. So I feel like it can be like, it's kind of like maybe better for the comics than it is for the performers almost.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm not opposed. I don't run a show like that, but I feel like it is like, it's just kind of like a way to it's also like helpful just for marketing to like find the audiences who would like a show like that, and kind of like make sure that people know that they're going to be like the kind of comics who would represent their lives. Just because stand
Mhm.
up so like personal, like you want to make sure that it's like someone who's talking about
Yeah,
things that
yeah,
you relate to.
yeah. I agree with that. Let's get into joke writing, because you your jokes are, well, they're not really jokes, they're your bits are very well put together and very conversational, and you know um autobiographical, all that kind of stuff. How And you talk about trying to fit jokes into that persona and into what you already have. How has joke writing changed for you from when you started, and how do you do it now?
I honestly think I do most of my joke writing on Twitter. I feel like any like funny idea I have like originates on Twitter. Like I'll have a thought and I'll tweet it, and then I will see if I can turn it into a stand-up joke or make a TikTok or something. TikTok actually is also kind of helpful for me, just for like saying things out loud and seeing kind of how they can be spoken conversationally, because a lot of times stuff on Twitter like really doesn't translate to TikTok.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say that those are kind of like my main two things. And then I sort of will like, once I think it can be like said out loud, I'll take it to like an open mic or to kind of like a more casual stand-up show. And then after that, I'll, yeah, if it works, I'll kind of like keep iterating it on it. I'll try it with different wording, just to kind of keep exploring it, to keep sort of
Mhm.
figuring out. Because sometimes like you have to find like something can be like a funny idea, and the challenge is to just like find the right format for the joke. Like some things were meant to be like satire pieces, like some things were meant to be um like stand-up bits. Like it's just kind of a matter of figuring out like something only ever meant to exist on Twitter. So just sort of like playing around with different ways of like different places of putting a joke before kind of like deciding on where it should go.
Mhm. Mhm. um I had a thought and I think I lost it. That's all right, it'll come back. um so this this is a partner show. I don't know if you got this, because I had to reschedule you, but there's something I'm doing called "Is This Anything?" And it's really caught on with the people who listen. I've gotten more positive feedback about that than I've gotten since I started the podcast. So it's actually uh, my new favorite part. So basically, what it is, you bring a premise, a bit, a joke, whatever you've got, and we bounce it off each other and see if it's anything, or give each other tags. You
Mhm.
got it? Do you have anything lined up?
Sure, yeah. Okay.
And really, you can choose. You can choose if you go first or me too. So
Why don't you go first?
okay. I'm pretty proud of this one because I was channeling you when I wrote it, and it was right after I read the article, the list of non-MAGA Republicans. So
Oh, nice.
this is dedicated to that article. Boomers and Gen Xers, please stop asking your kids when they're going to give you grandbabies. Besides the fact that some people just don't want kids, have you seen the world today? There's a good chance that your precious grandbaby may turn out to be the real life Sarah O'Connor, saving the world from Elon Musk, Joel Osteen, and the disembodied head of Donald Trump mounted on a 20-foot tall robot with gun arms. That's it.
Do you want it to be like a satire piece, like a full length kind of New Yorker
It's
thing, or you want like a stand up bit?
it's more, so I'm writing it as a stand-up bit,
Yeah.
and so it kind of weaves into everything that boomers have a problem with, like self checkouts and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and just it's kind of a gentle rail again, maybe not that gentle rail against boomers. And I've thought about writing pieces and stuff like that, but I've never taken the time to actually do it.
I think it's really funny. I think maybe from like the opening sentence, it felt like more of an essay than a stand up bit. Can you say it one more time?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm reading it because I've never said it out
Okay,
loud.
maybe that's right. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think it's really funny. Yeah.
And that's probably why it sounds like a written
Yeah.
piece. Boomers and Gen Xers, please stop asking your kids when they're going to give you grandbabies. Besides the fact that some people just don't want kids, have you seen the world today? There's a really good chance that your precious grandbaby may turn out to be a real life Sarah Connor, saving the world from Elon Musk, Joel Osteen, and the disembodied head of Donald Trump mounted on a 20-foot tall robot with gun arms.
Yeah, that's really funny. I think it's like, okay, so I feel like it should be like more clear that the grandchild is gonna go after things that they love.
Uh,
Because
yeah.
it doesn't. I guess I'm not on board with the idea that boomers love like Elon Musk. So
Mhm.
like there's a real good chance like your grandchild is gonna grow up to like be the one to like, yeah, the idea of like all the things that like boomers hate, self checkout, like your grandchild might grow up and like and invent a better version of self checkout.
Yeah.
Or like things that are like specifically like what do boomers like really hate.
Mm.
Your grandchild is gonna grow up and like tell you that what's like a television show that I don't know, what are things
I don't know, like everybody loves Raymond.
yeah,
That's
your grandchild gonna grow up, watch Everybody Loves Raymond and not laugh once.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. And I feel like I could maybe dig more into if I went the Sarah Connor route, I could dig more into that and how the world's getting to where it is and where it's going from here.
I think I don't know Sarah Connor.
Okay, there you go. Terminator.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
she was the kid's mom in Terminator.
I see. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
that's why it probably won't work because your generation doesn't know Terminator.
Okay, yeah, there, there you go.
That's I
Um,
got to find something
yeah, like
else.
um your yeah, I'm looking at a BuzzFeed article for things boomers love. Like your grandchild's gonna grow up and not have any idea what a floppy disk is.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, and know what life was like without cable TV and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
texting and
Yeah,
smartphones
like
and all
before
that kind of
you
stuff.
pressure your kids to have their own kids, just keep in mind that in 10 years there might be a child in front of you asking you what cable is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. I'm taking notes as I go. Great, thank you. And it was really good that I bounced this one off of you, because if you don't know who Sarah Connor is, then that's kind of a deal breaker, because most of the audiences around here are about your age. So.
Okay, then there you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I may try it that way at a mic one time and see how many of my peers actually know who she is.
Honestly, I think I'm like more out of the loop. Like I don't follow pop culture very well, so she could be like someone everyone knows.
Yeah, and I'm the same. I'm an outlier as far as that's concerned, because I'm not like in the Marvel movies or anything like that. And but Terminator is one thing I know. That's and
Mm-hmm.
But what was that, like 30 years ago when the first one came out?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. What you got for me?
Okay, this one's based on like a tweet, but like something like I really want to find a partner and start a family, because I read one time that like 70% of people on their deathbed say the most important things in life are love and family, which does beg the question, why are you taking a survey of people on their deathbeds? That's like kind of a one-liner, so I don't know where I would go from there, but yeah, that's like something I'm working on.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you could really dig into what the whole love and family thing is, and if you want to, what does family mean these days? And what did it mean then?
Yeah. Or maybe they felt like they had to say family because their family were the only people there.
Yeah, yeah. They were reading the room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good. Yeah, I think you could definitely work with that.
Okay. And then I have one where I want to say like I would never describe myself as sexually active. There's something active about what I do when I'm having sex. I prefer the term sexually present. In fact, I spend most of the session being jealous of how many calories the guy is burning.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Yeah, any tags. It kind of works sometimes, but it doesn't really like pop. So I feel like I either need to like come up with another tag or sort of spec it.
Now, I've got one last question. You're kind of an outlier, and you don't get into pop culture so much. Are there any of the old-timey comedians that you've watched? Have you watched any of the older shows? Have any of them just like put a light bulb above your head or whatever? Just you really got into what they were doing and it kind of inspired you?
I wish I could say that I watched a lot of old comedians, but I didn't. I was never really a stand-up fan before I started doing it. Maybe like Mitch Hedberg, like that kind of one-liner style. Yeah, but I unfortunately was not like a big comedy fan as a child, so I don't think I have like a comedian who really inspired me. I love like Dimitri Martin. I wouldn't say he's an old comedian, and I actually wouldn't really say his style inspires me, but I do remember watching him like 10 years ago and thinking it was like really cool what he was doing, just cool and different.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is really fun.
Thanks for doing a redo for me.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
I'm glad the equipment stayed together.
Yeah. That's good, yeah.
Where can folks find you on all the socials, and maybe say a little bit about the book that came out too?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Ginny Hogan _ on Twitter and Instagram, and then I'm Ginny Hogan on TikTok. The book is a humor book. It's like New Yorker style satire pieces about dating. It's like a fun, quick read. It follows the structure of a modern relationship, and kind of points out like the absurdity of modern dating. It's called I'm More Dateable Than a Plate of Refried Beans. I link to it on all my social media. So yeah, if you are interested, give it a read.
Yeah, it sounds really good. Maybe I'll buy it and send it to my daughter.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I hope she likes it. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show. This was great.
Yeah, this was really fun.